Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Super Dandori Bros Podcast. We are your hosts. I'm Leighton, and with me I have he's Ryan.
Yeah, it's me, the one and only, the only Ryan that's ever existed.
The only Ryan. Yep, all other Ryans are fakes. They're knockoffs.
Yeah, agreed.
So, no, we got the authentic, real deal here today, and we are going to talk about, again, another game that is near and dear to our hearts. Also just happens to be on the Nintendo DS. This is kind of another one of the hidden gem games that we're going to bring up. It is Metroid Prime Hunters. And it's a game that, while I feel like it might be a little bit more well-known than our previous game, Elite Beat Agents, it definitely was not a super high-selling game, was not as well-known, I think, in amongst a lot of Nintendo fans. And I don't know, but it was a game that I was just super hyped about and loved when I was younger. How about you, Ryan?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I remember when the Nintendo Power episode or issue came out. That was that featured Metroid Prime Hunters, and like I was like absolutely stoked. Like I was at the time like really into drawing, would like try to redraw all the characters, and I don't know, like it was super cool. And I think part of the reason why is because it was sort of the first time. I think it was the first time in at least Metroid game history where we got to see other bounty hunters in that world. Like we previously had, the SAX and Dark Samus, which in some ways are sort of bounty hunters, but um, obviously they are just sort of clone versions of Samus in some way, shape, or form. And so it's not really quite the same as like original characters that can sort of go toe to toe with Samus. And so that was just like that just like blew my mind, and my thought was like, oh, like we're definitely going to see these characters back. Well, we kind of are seeing one of them come back, but it's been a very long time, much longer than I would have guessed. But I was stoked for it at the time.
Oh, yeah. I remember watching the trailers for it. And actually, what was incredible, because, again, when they first announced the Nintendo DS, it was like one of the showcase games was the Metroid Prime Hunters demo, which I actually have still a copy of because it came with the original Nintendo DS. I have 2 copies of them because my brother had one too. And I will never get rid of those because there's just something special about that. But yeah, I remember like the intro scene for the original game. It took a few years for it. Was it a few years? I think it came out because
Yeah, it was. It was a
the
while.
DS came out into the end of 2004, I believe, and Metroid Prime Hunters came out. I've got all the stuff here in 2006. It was March 20th, 2006. So it was like a year and a half, I guess, that it took for it to come out. And I just, at the time, that felt like an eternity because we just thought the game was just ready to go. But yeah, in fact, we had that demo for a year and a half before we got the actual game. So
Yeah, it's funny because I didn't realize it was a demo when I picked up the DS. I'm like, oh sweet, like full game
yeah,
with the DS, and I like played through it. I'm like, is this it? This is like it's fun, but it's really short. Like, huh?
yeah,
And I just did not understand.
it was. The single player portion was very underwhelming, and I remember I've beat it. I played that so many times trying to get high scores of like speed runs, basically on the
Hmm.
demo. But what was cool that there was some form of multiplayer in the demo, and my brother and I would play the heck out of that. I think we got our DSs right before we had to do a long road trip, so we were playing that a ton, back and forth, because I think it was like the only multiplayer thing we had at the time. Because again, the DS had just come out. And so we loved that. It was super fun. But I actually went back and played the demo again, just literally like, I don't know, a month or so ago, just to see what it was like. And it's amazing how much changed from the demo to the final game. Like you would think it'd be very
Yeah,
similar, but it was actually like visually it looks better in the final game. The weapons and the HUD, everything is just massively improved.
yeah. It almost feels to me like First Hunt is sort of a polished version of whatever their original like pitch build was to Nintendo, where they're just like, yeah, this is the sort of game that we want to make, and they just sort of ship the polished version because a lot of the art changed, a lot of like you said, the heads up display changed, which granted, like those could change, at pretty much any time, but it does sort of feel to me like a tech demo, and I think that was exactly its intention.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it also serves as a good like gameplay pitch of like this is sort of how we would expect you to be able to control and switch. And then along the way, they made adjustments to make it better. Now, granted, it's been a long time since I played the demo, so maybe I have no idea what I'm talking about. But I don't know. Does that seem to? Would you agree with that interpretation in any way?
Yeah, no, I do. Yeah, I mean, a lot of things had to change. I mean, and again, a year and a half of extra development time, everything was going to look a little different. But I think the way it was pitched, though, I genuinely thought were a lot further along in the game. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember I think the main reason they were showing this off was because they definitely wanted to showcase like how powerful their system was. Because I believe the PSP came out the year after the DS, and I think
Maybe.
that's what
Yeah.
forced
Mm-hmm.
Nintendo even push the DS out when it came out, which is why I think the original DS is almost like a prototype, because I don't think they were
Mm-hmm.
really, because the Game Boy Advance was only like 3 years old when the DS came out, which is crazy. Like they switched out really quick because I think they knew the PSP was coming and they had to get ahead of that. And then this game was kind of trying to showcase like, look what we can do. We can do a first person 3D game on this system. Like this is next level hardware. Of course, the PSP came out the next year, and it was like absolutely way more powerful than the DS. But by that point, people like me had already bought into the idea that Nintendo DS was the best system ever. And definitely
Mm-hmm.
hardware-wise, visual-wise, like graphics-wise, the DS was no match for the PSP. But where the DS kind of won is just the fact that it had a very unique system set up with the dual screen, the touch screen. It had a lot of features and it was way more affordable and had way better battery life than the PSP. The disc option for portable was just a really bad move for Sony, just because of how bad the battery life was, because I had to move this disc, and obviously, if you bump the system wrong, it would. I don't know. I guess it wouldn't skip, but it was still risk. But yeah, this was like a big deal. I think that was my theory anyway. Just why I think that even Metroid Prime Hunters kind of almost got pushed the way it did in the DS. So. But yeah, I'm trying to think.
It was just
Go ahead. Sorry.
it's funny because you just never think of like Metroid as a system seller.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so obviously they were sort of riding high still a little bit on the success of Prime, not commercially, but critically. And it as much as the GameCube wasn't a particularly great seller either, they probably were like, yeah, we actually have like a quality thing with like at least a little bit of name recognition that we could push out as a first person, game or whatever. And it just like surprises me that that's what they would pick,
Mm-hmm.
um, as opposed to say like a demo for Mario 64 DS, for example. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
I guess because Mario maybe wasn't as impressive as a visual showcase. Like having a first person game was almost more visually impressive than like a platformer. Mario 64 maybe doesn't, because Metroid Prime on the GameCube was like, it is still to this day a visual showcase of what the GameCube could do. It is a
Yes.
phenomenal looking game, runs 60 frames per second. It's just super nice. And it sold well. It sold 2.84 million on the GameCube, which was really good for the GameCube. But then
Mm-hmm.
Metroid Prime 2 came out in 2004, and it only sold 1.1 million. But by that point, they'd already started development for Metroid Prime Hunters. In fact, the demo for Metroid Prime Hunters came out that year. So when the sales didn't hit their mark with Metroid Prime 2 Echoes, they might have been feeling a little nervous about making Metroid Prime Hunters a showcase game anymore. But to be fair, the DS did launch with Mario 64 DS, so they didn't launch with Metroid. They definitely still know that Mario is a
Yeah.
system seller. And then Mario Kart, I think, came out 2005, I think, for DS. I can't remember. Anyway, point being is that eventually Metroid Prime Hunters came out. And this is also after, Mario Kart came out, so the Nintendo Wi-Fi thing was a big, big deal at the time. Like, people just do not understand how big of a deal Wi-Fi was when this came out. It just wasn't a thing that everybody had. We take it for
Yeah.
granted
I
now.
didn't have it.
Yeah. I didn't have it. I went to a coffee shop my first time I used the Wi-Fi on the DS, local coffee shop, because my parents didn't have Wi-Fi. we still had dial up until like 2005 or 2006. And then thankfully I was able to convince them to get a router because we got the Wii and I needed Wi-Fi for that. But, and back then it was really basic Wi-Fi. So it was kind of a big deal having Nintendo already kind of be on that bandwagon as things were changing and developing, getting Wi-Fi back in 2004 on their handheld system. Then their next home console had it. And, the Xbox 360, the original Xbox 360 didn't have Wi-Fi.
Yep.
Which is crazy to think about.
Yeah.
But, a system.
It is very weird.
It's all Ethernet. Eventually, the new ones, I think, came with Wi-Fi. But yeah, it just wasn't. It wasn't a standard thing. PS3 and Nintendo, the Wii, came out with Wi-Fi. But yeah, so it's an interesting time where technology was changing really fast, and the mobile era was coming upon us. We didn't have iPhones yet, but like it was definitely a time where like mobile tech was picking up steam really quick. So. Back onto Metroid Hunters, though, because I feel like I'm getting a little off topic, because it's just, you have to understand some of the context. There's so much going on at the time. Why Metroid Prime Hunters, at least to us, or to me, was a really big deal, was I had this system that I was just, as a kid, console wars were still kind of a thing. So having a game like Metroid Prime Hunters felt like a win. It felt like, look what my system can do. Look what cool game I have. And so when I got it, it was just like my brother got it, I got it. And I remember actually went on my way to help buy one for a friend of mine. So all three of us would have it so we could play together because we could play online. It had voice chat, not in-game, but in the lobby. It put voice chat in there with your friends. Like, that was so early days, like, ahead of its time. And Nintendo just, like, struggled with any kind of voice chat after that. But it's just even wild that the DS had voice chat at all. It had the microphone, but they weren't really using it very much, so. Yeah. So what was it when you got it? Did you get it when it first came out?
Yeah, I got it pretty soon after it came out, at least. Do you remember the date that, the DS or Metroid Prime Hunters?
Prime Hunters.
Oh, like the actual game? Yeah, I absolutely got it, like, basically the day that it came out. Or maybe like a day after, I don't remember. Pretty sure that I, bought it from some local retail store. I don't think that we were buying things off of Amazon at the time. My mom had a vendetta against Amazon for the longest time, actually. But I don't know if you know that.
I didn't know that. But I didn't buy anything on Amazon until I was like out of high school.
Yeah. But, I picked it up. I'd been, like reading everything that I could find about it, on the Nintendo website, on, just like wherever. I was like super stoked for it. I remember firing it up, and the first thing that I did was the single player campaign because I didn't really have anyone to play with. Didn't have Wi-Fi, and the one guy that I knew at the time who was also getting it, he didn't have Wi-Fi, and he and I like only saw each other like occasionally at school or whatever. And so I didn't really get to play multiplayer for a long time. And even when I finally did with him, he was like sort of over it, So the most of my experience with the multiplayer of the game was actually versus bots.
Yeah, same.
Which was really fun. And I remember like playing that late into the night, and just sniping as Trace. Now I played what I think is like the worst control style for that game. But it's sort of like made sense to me at the time, which was their attempt at dual analog, where you move the camera with what were essentially arrow keys, right? And I would try to snipe with that, which was like a huge mistake. It took me like a super long time to understand that the stylus, as painful as it was the more accurate option. So I was not very good against the bots, but because the bots followed very specific paths, I always knew how to like line up the perfect headshot. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And so that was like my experience with multiplayer. And I can't remember the name of the map, but it's the one where it's like you can do like capture the flag on it, which was my favorite, and it was sort of out in space. Like there was like, I think an indoor portion and an outdoor portion. And like, there's this one almost like statue thing above one of the flags, and I would like perch on top of that as Trace and snipe like bots. Do you remember what I'm talking about? Do you remember that
I
map?
vaguely remember. I know the map that I preferably went to was the one was like the big. It was like the lava level with the big like hill in the middle of it. It was good for King of the Hill, and that was the
Hmm.
one I like to play as Trace and just snipe people all the time. It was because me and my brother would play us against bots, and so either him or I think he actually liked to play Trace a lot, but we would sit on the outside, like on the outer side of the map, and then just basically snipe the top of the hill, and have one of us just keep
Hmm.
holding it. We just had to have one of us survive, while the other person just kept sniping them as they were coming up. Because again, predictable path, right? So they kept coming the same way, so we could just keep headshotting them every single time, and
Yep.
that was our way of winning. But so that's the level we played the most. So I'm trying to remember like some of the other levels, to be honest. I think I kind of remember that level
Yeah.
though.
Yeah, I remember the lava level. Honestly, we should just like go back and play that together sometime.
We should.
Um,
What if the Wi-Fi
yeah,
part
it's
works?
yeah. Oh, I don't know. That's a good question, but it's I don't know. It was honestly kind of mind blowing. Like just thinking about it, because it essentially was like a hero shooter before hero shooters.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you really sit there and think about it, and it's like, yeah, you didn't have like a lot of abilities, but the like sort of differentiating factors of each character were their alt mode, which, some of them were like totally useless, and some of them were actually like really cool ideas. Like Weevils, I really liked.
Yeah.
Because like essentially his legs would disconnect and become like a turret. And I feel like if they were to give this another shot, they could do some really cool stuff with it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I don't know. I feel like it would need a rebalancing, but like I don't know, with the graphical power that the Switch 2 has, and sort of more modern game design that Nintendo follows now, I feel like you could get something really special from this, which is why for the longest time I was rooting for a multiplayer mode for Prime 4. I feel like we would have heard about it by now, though.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's in there.
I just think it'd be so much fun just to have a Metroid Prime Hunters remake, but maybe just the multiplayer portion.
Yeah.
Like just if they want to make a standalone Metroid, maybe even I hate to say free to play, but like if they want to get people on board, that might be the way to get like some people to actually pick it up. But just Metroid Prime
Mm-hmm.
Hunters free to play multiplayer, that'd be kind of fun. Just revamped with pointer controls. I think they'd obviously have to do some balancing because there was some major balancing issues in that game.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah, absolutely. Like Weevil's turret felt useless. Like it felt like it should actually be a significant threat,
mhm.
but like I feel like it wasn't. Like correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't remember like dying to that very regularly.
I don't think I died to it regularly. It was pretty easy to just destroy it. Because it took away half his health, it made it really easy to take him out. But when I was playing as
Yeah.
Weevil, I liked it because against the bots, they'd get really distracted by it, and then I just come over and just sword them with my other alt form. So it was just a super easy way to just bait them in with my butt, and just and they just come in and go after the turret while I'm just like slicing them. So that was kind of fun. I like the concept, like you said. My go-to was Silex, always. His alt
This-
form was really, really good if you knew how to use his bombs correctly. You could do insane amounts of damage if you triangulated him. So
mhm.
you knew about that, right? Like where you basically play, if you can get them in the middle, you just trap them. It's like incinerates their health.
Yeah, it's basically like almost a one hit KO. Like it's obviously not a one hit KO, but you've essentially cooked them. Like they're done.
Yeah, and then his alt weapon, when you're in regular form, it steals health. So as long as I just kept it on them like long enough, I was like invincible because I could just keep stealing their health while
Yeah.
they're trying to take me out.
He was easily the best character. Like
Easily,
hands down. Like
yeah.
there isn't anyone that even comes
Well,
close.
that's why he's coming back because he's the coolest and he was the best.
He was like it's funny because if you look at the cast of characters, you've got Candon, Spire, I think what
Nox. Hmm.
Noxus, Trace, Weevil, and Silux. Of those, I think that there is huge disparity in the ones with potential to come back. Silux obviously being the top choice, who is coming back. Like we We know that now,
Mm-hmm.
which was a question up until like what, June of last year,
Mm-hmm.
because like we weren't sure, like, oh, are they actually going to make good on this? Like I know they said he was coming back, but like they rebooted development. Like I don't know.
Yeah.
Um, so it was cool to see him return. But then I think the other two that sort of have potential for coming back are Trace and Weevil. I
Yeah.
think the other three are inherently less interesting. Of those three, I think Cannon would be the only one that you might be able to make something out of. But like none of the others are like all that interesting. What I kind of would like to see is like, and it would be a cool surprise and a way to work them in without having a multiplayer mode, would be if Prime 4 sort of had like side quests at different points during the game, and like you did have to actually like track them down and beat them again.
Mm.
Like how you'd work that into the story, I don't know. But it would actually be kind of cool if Prime 4 was sort of a soft like reboot slash sequel of Prime Hunters. If they're just like, yeah, this is like if we had made Prime Hunters today, this is what we would have done, but without multiplayer.
Mm-hmm. I feel like
And I don't think we're getting that, but it would be kind of cool to at least get one other. You know what I mean?
Prime Hunters was always built with the idea of multiplayer in mind, though. Like that's kind of I feel like why
Oh,
the
I
Hunters
agree.
were even made, because it was a huge deal, the multiplayer. I mean, Prime 2 had multiplayer, but then Prime Hunters felt like it was built for multiplayer. It had a very Quake kind of esque feel to it. The battle modes, the online, the local, with it just it wasn't like mega multiplayer with loads of players. It's still always maximum I think of 4 players, but it was still like very, to me it always just felt like it was a multiplayer game that got a single player slapped onto it, because the single player was very like I started playing it again just for the fun of it, and I did a few boss fights. I'm like, these kind of suck.
Oh, it's terrible. Like the single player is terrible. I have played that single player through probably more times than any other Metroid game. And the reason why is because I hated having even a single loss on my hunter record. And so anytime I would fall asleep and lose to the bots in multiplayer, I would actually delete my save file and then just quickly play through the single player again because I knew where all the scans were, and I'd 100% it real quick just to get like my record perfect again. It was such a dumb thing to do. I've spent way too many hours in that game.
Yeah, I've beat that single player. Probably not as many times as you, but I definitely put a lot of playthroughs on it. So it's I don't know. I still have fond
Yeah.
memories of it. Like there's parts of it that I did like. And again, it was still so impressive as a kid, like seeing this 3D, being able to play a Metroid. It's a sad thing to say, this was my first experience playing a Metroid Prime game. I didn't have a GameCube.
Wow.
I didn't have my second experience was playing Metroid Prime 3 Corruption. It wasn't so much later that I finally got to play Metroid Prime 1 like through the GameCube version, which was awesome. And then I've now played the remastered one. I still haven't beat Metroid Prime 2. I kept holding out hope that they're going to come out with a remaster for that, and maybe they still will, but I'm going to have to just I have the trilogy on my Wii U. I'm just going to have to set up the pointer controls and just play it that way.
Yeah.
But I was really
Yeah.
hoping.
Ultimately, that's your only shot. I don't think we're getting. I don't think we're getting the re-release. I could be wrong.
I know the sales numbers
Maybe.
don't back it up. That's the sad thing, and that's just the sad reality. Unless they can find a way to do it for real cheap, I could see them doing again like an HD, like just upscaling like they did with Pikmin 1 and 2. That's probably the best hope I could have for Prime 2 and 3. I'm sorry, yeah.
Yeah.
But that's it. I think a remaster is just too much effort. It's like Prime 1 deserved it. It's the quintessential Prime game. It set the bar. It set the stage for all those games to come. But yeah. But yeah, so Prime Hunter. I wanted to kind of bring back those control things we were talking about too, because I remember it was very controversial, the touchscreen controls. A lot of people hated them. As a kid, I never really even considered that they would be disliked. I kind of just
Yeah.
used it, and I actually really, really liked it, even though my hand was cramping like crazy at the end of a playthrough.
I. What's funny is if you replaced it with something else with a thicker caliber, because it wasn't like electronic or anything. It was just a piece of plastic. So if you replaced it with something with an equivalent tip size, but like a but it was a thicker instrument, your hand wouldn't have cramped as much. I was never smart enough to do that. Um, and so, ultimately I did use that tiny stylus for the longest time. It does surprise me that like that actually did make it into the final model. Like that was the stylus that we got. Like it was obviously terrible, obviously.
Well,
And it just like looking back, I'm like, how is this even? It's sort of like to me the equivalent of the Switch One's kickstand.
yes.
It's like the clear like feature that is just totally subpar. And it's like, why is this even here? How did this make it into the final version? Like, it's so strange. But that is the equivalent to me.
Yeah. No, it was pretty barbaric, the first one. I mean, I think the Switch Lite, sorry, the DS Lite had a better stylus, if I remember correctly. I think they made it bigger.
I think they did. And yeah, because it was like horizontal underneath it. And I think it like fit in better, if I remember correctly. And then the 3DS improved on it more, 3DS Model 1, by having the stylus be collapsible. And then they just went back with the new 3DS, and I think they made it thicker. And then, but they made it just again a piece of plastic. I liked the collapsible one personally.
I didn't because it kept collapsing on me while I was using it.
Oh well, I only grabbed the like tip of it. I didn't like hold it far enough back to like apply force and like collapse the thing, because I felt like they gave you a decent enough amount of grip. It now, like looking back on it, it's like we probably should have had an ergonomic like version of that at some point. Like the 3DS and the DS like form factor and like was around for a while, like a good amount of time. And it just is sort of surprising that we never got anything that truly was very comfortable. We got improvements, but like never anything that was like really good, you know?
Well, so something I learned way after the DS era was, over, was that there was, with the original DS, if you remember, came with this wrist strap. And what I didn't realize is on the wrist strap, there was this little piece of plastic. And I thought that was just there to, like, I don't know, I didn't know what it was there for. But I discovered later on that you were supposed to put your thumb on the wrist strap and tighten this little piece of plastic, like this basically up to your thumb, so that it would on your thumb. And there was this little rounded piece of black plastic on that wrist strap that you were supposed to have on your thumb and use that on the touchscreen if you didn't want to use the stylus. So it's basically supposed to make it feel like an analog stick on the touchscreen. So like, for example, with Mario 64, they had an analog option if you used a touchscreen. The touchscreen could act as an analog stick. And the idea was you would use your thumb on the touchscreen with this little plastic. Because if you just use your thumb just touching it, wasn't like a capacitive touchscreen, it was pressure sensitive. So you had to have something with a hard surface to really register. But that was a way that you were supposed to do it. And people did it for Metroid Prime Hunters too. I tried that after, and it was awful. Like I'm so ingrained in the idea of using a stylus, like I couldn't get it to work properly. But if there was something that sat on your thumb, comfortably and didn't move around, maybe that would work. But I was like, how was I supposed to know that that was an option back then on the DS?
That is the most opaque feature I think that Nintendo has ever come up with.
Yeah.
That was communicated nowhere, to my knowledge. Maybe it's hidden in the instruction booklet or something, but that, like, I would never have thought to do that. Like, that is so bizarre to me.
Yeah.
Like, I just thought that, like, because I remember that wrist strap, and I thought that those two pieces of plastic were there. Like one, the sliding part I thought was there just to like cinch it onto your wrist so that it like the strap doesn't just like fall off, sort of like the Wii U or the Wii straps eventually, like those did. And then the other piece of plastic was there to keep the first one from sliding off or something. That's just what I assumed it was.
Nope.
Gosh, sometimes I hate Nintendo, man.
I know. It was such a weird thing that they just did not disclose, or maybe they did once and they thought that everybody was there for that meeting. You know, maybe it was in the instructions.
Yeah,
I didn't read the instructions for that thing, so I don't know. But like, I saw someone
me
online
neither.
using it that way, and I was like, wait, that's a thing? And it made perfect sense when I realized that they wanted you to use the touchscreen as an analog stick for Mario 64, because again, it didn't have an analog stick, and that was a big deal for Mario 64.
Hmm.
I just played Mario 64 with the D-pad. I got through the game,
Yeah.
and I just didn't. It just was what it was. I would have loved to have played that game with analog controls. Um,
Gosh, that's now I feel like I got to try that. Unfortunately, my dog at the time destroyed that wrist strap, so that doesn't exist anymore for me.
I might.
So I'm gonna have to go back and find it
I'm gonna have.
or an equivalent.
I'll have to look in my case. I think there is a wrist strap in my case. I'll have to see if it has that on it or not. Because I sold my original DS and to buy my DS Lite, so I only have the DS Lite. But since that day, I've never sold any of my. That's not true. I did. I sold my original 3DS to buy a new 3DS, and then I sold that. But I sold that one to my brother, who I don't know if he still has it. Comment if you do, because I know he listens.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
but yeah, it was. Yeah, it was. So yeah, it was so weird the way you could control that game, and then you double tap to jump, and then which was like, so you take your hand. You couldn't like jump and aim really. You kind of could, I guess, but it was like really weird. Um, yeah, and then you had your trigger, like the little L button for shooting, because I was right-handed, so I would use the
Mhm.
touchscreen with my right hand, and then I had the D-pad and L button, and that was it. There was like no other buttons I could use. So your morph ball was a touchscreen option, your weapon change, your missiles, everything was on the touchscreen, so you kind of had to look down a lot. Um,
Yeah, which I really like the idea of having like the ability to switch between Samus's weapons be like on a touchscreen or be like in I don't know, I guess that's sort of like how it is on a controller anyway. But I do sort of like the idea of being able to get really like this is sort of how like Samus Returns feels to me, like switching between the different beam options. And like once you sort of just know like how to control things, it's like I don't know, tapping it on the screen is like an extra it's almost like custom buttons for each game, right?
mhm.
And so it's like you could sort of just make the gameplay feel different as a result of that and like reward people who like pay attention and who like memorize where everything is and get really good at that and develop good muscle memory. I kind of like that in game design, especially when you're trying to play a game about an extremely skilled bounty hunter. You know what I mean? Like you want to sort of communicate to the players, and I think that's why like there's such a high skill ceiling for like Metroid games in general, where and specifically the 2D games, where when you're like good at them, like for speedrunning, for example, like you're really good at them. You know what I mean? Like there's so much you can do and then back in Super Metroid, like a lot of the techniques that we sort of take for granted now, like the Shine Spark, for example, were like secret techniques at the time that the game like taught you very obscurely. And so I don't know, like I just sort of like that in game design. I felt like it really did keep like contribute to that atmosphere with Samus in particular just being able to switch between things or like activating morph ball in a way that isn't just a button press. Like it is fundamentally a button press, but it feels different. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean?
Yeah, it just felt more natural, like you're controlling the HUD, like you're, I don't know. So I guess not HUD, but
Yeah.
like as if she was in control, not with a control. I don't know. I don't know how to describe it. I know what you're saying though. It just felt more like you were her.
Yeah. And it felt different from switching visors in Prime 3.
Mm-hmm.
Because in Prime 3 you like held a button and then moved the cursor. And I know that's what they were like sort of going for, is probably a similar like feel. It's like, oh, we're giving you buttons without giving you buttons. You know what I mean? Like we're helping you control it in a fundamentally different way. I just don't feel like that was quite as consistent, though the aiming I thought was excellent in that at the time. Now I would never go back to it. Because it just isn't that good.
Mm-hmm.
Um I would definitely kill for a VR version of Prime, using current VR technology. That would be great. And then that would give you sort of some of that back. Um, Because, like, for example, like in Resident Evil VR, you switch weapons by actually moving your hands to different parts of your body, and like, your handgun's like, I don't know, on your waist or whatever, and your long gun is, behind you, and so you sort of like control and like switch weapons in a different way than just pressing a button. Like in Halo, you just press Y and you switch buttons. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like you would probably be able to get some of that back. Like if you imagine, like, I don't know, like let's say that your right arm is the arm cannon, and you like press one button and then like tilt your hand into different positions to select different beams or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's just like a first pass at like a suggestion of it. But like I feel like you could do something really cool with that. And in that way I almost wish that the Switch 2 was, at least had a VR version that we know of, like or like a VR functionality. Maybe that comes, down the road, maybe not. But
Yeah, I have my own thoughts on what Nintendo could do VR wise. They've kind of done that with the Switch 1. They dabbled with it, and the Switch 2 possibly could be powerful enough to power a VR headset, but my thoughts are just that Nintendo, if they want to dabble in VR, should just make their own standalone VR thing like the Quest, like the Meta Quest,
mm-hmm.
and not try to shoehorn it into the same system, and just let it be its own experimental thing versus it being because otherwise it's kind of compromised. But I would love to see it. I'd love to see Nintendo dabble more in VR, but I think that if the market's still not there and still the adoption rate's still not there, so I think they're waiting for other people to kind of pave the path a little bit there, or at least do all the testing.
Yeah.
But
Or for the technology to get cheaper.
that's true too. I mean, that's what Nintendo usually does, right? Is to wait for it to become more affordable. But something I wanted to bring up about Metroid Prime Hunters that I was just thinking about that I've forgotten completely about was because we're talking about the beams, right? And how the whole Metroid always has progression, right? There's always things you upgrade, but a lot of times it's because you've lost all your powers at the beginning and you have to get them all back. You have to get your morph ball back. You have to get your double jump back. You have to get all that. But the Metroid Prime Hunters, correct me if I'm wrong, is one of the first or one of the few, I know it's one of the few, but Metroid games where you don't lose all your stuff at the beginning of the game. You technically start out with the essentials already.
I think that is largely correct. You also don't lose stuff in the beginning of Metroid 2.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to remember.
In Super Metroid, you also don't lose stuff, but like you still start out weak. But you in Super Metroid, you still have to go like get the morph ball and stuff. So you like are underpowered compared to like Samus in the beginning of Prime Hunters. And then interestingly enough, Prime 3 also you don't have to like regather all your stuff, which is kind of interesting. Like in some ways I almost wish that like because like in Prime 1 Fusion, well, we don't really know that much about like how powerful Samus was in the beginning of Dread, I guess. But like in a lot of them, like you'd be surprised at how few times there's actually like an injury or something that takes away Samus's abilities. It's like she just sort of doesn't have them equipped by default. It makes me wonder if like somewhere in the lore it's like, yeah, these things only last like a certain amount of time. Like there are only so many of these that exist in the galaxy and they only work for a little while. And then the power suit sort of atrophies and goes back to like sort of a default state where you have like 15 missiles or something like that. But then like Other M contradicts that where she technically has everything. She's just got them locked up. Which there was a way to fix that narratively actually. That would have been way cooler. But that would have to wait for an Other M replay for both of us for me to talk about with you. But anyway, yeah, but you're right. She doesn't lose anything in the beginning.
Yeah, it's very much just and the only things she really gains are the other hunters' powers, if I'm not mistaken. Obviously, you have energy tanks and missile tanks, but like that's it. There's no real. The only special powers you get are the hunter powers. It's
yeah,
very
the
limited.
hunter powers. That's it. And then the like quintessential like final weapon
Yeah, but I mean
in the final
that's just a
boss.
final. That's not doesn't really affect level
Yeah,
design or doesn't really affect anything.
I agree.
So yeah, it's actually pretty interesting how limiting the equipment set is because to be fair, most of the weapons you get from the hunters they don't, other than opening specific doors, they don't really do anything special in the world as far as I'm aware. They just are a different weapon to use in combat that has certain
Yeah,
attributes, which again leads into my belief that this game was always meant to be like more of a multiplayer game that had single player added on.
yeah, I 100% agree. There's not it doesn't really have much of a Metroidvania progression to it at all. There's no like, oh, you need, at least to my knowledge, I don't think that there's like a, oh, you need this beam to get through this door sort of thing. Like you can just sort of go from like area to area. I
No,
think
there were definitely
it's been a
doors that were
long
blocked
time.
by certain colors that associated with the
There
weapon.
were
Yeah,
okay.
I
Okay,
literally just played
remind
it
me there
back.
was.
Like the first door you blocked by is by Candon's. It's like a green color. And there was
Oh, okay.
yes, there's definitely doors blocked for those weapons, but that was it. There's like it's just a door, you know.
Yeah.
Which whereas like in Metroid Prime 1 you get the wave beam, and yes, that wave beam can open certain doors, but it also can penetrate through certain wall things. So when you had the X-ray visor or something, you could also mix it with the wave beam and like combine it, or the heat, the thermal what I can
Hmm.
the
Or yeah, or
plasma
like
beam I think.
using missiles to bring down stalactites or
But
I don't
well, you
know, like
combine certain things, and I loved how the weapons had upgrades in Prime 1 too, where like you could turn them, like the fire one turned into a flamethrower, just eat through your missiles, but you could use it as a flamethrower, or you could combine it with your missile powers, and it was just a lot more options and a little more versatility in how you used it. Also, just not just in combat, but as a tool to get around the world,
yeah.
which is what Metroid's usually good for. Is the weapons aren't just for combat. But there's no, grapple hook. There's no screw attack or space jump. There's no like any kind of unique ability that would really make the world more fun to traverse. So yeah, very very bare bones Metroid game. And it's like as a kid I thought it was great. Now as an adult I realize I understand why people were a little bit frustrated with it. But I'm never gonna take away from
Yeah.
the multiplayer though. That was still the best.
For me, I thought that the biggest, like now I would agree with you, but even at the time, like my biggest criticism of that game were the
Oh,
bosses.
the bosses were
I thought the
terrible.
bosses were like horrible. Like obviously, like the fights with the hunters were kind of fun
Hmm.
because that's like what the game is about, you know. And it's like I want to fight Candon and Spire and like all these guys. Like I don't want to fight an eyeball like 5 times or whatever. I think it's 4 times,
And the tower.
but it's like yeah, in the tower, and it's like they literally recycled the bosses. I like it almost makes me wonder, like, would it have been? It almost certainly would have been received better. It probably, obviously, would have taken up more resources and been harder to develop. But I don't know, it might have been worth it if you could just do like a greatest hits of Prime One bosses and just like bring back, like I don't know, like a Ridley fight or and literally use the exact same animations and like obviously a low poly version of Ridley. I don't know how feasible that was on the DS, like how much they really like obviously they like pushed it to like whatever limits that it had and maybe storage space was an issue, but like it really is unfortunate that we received the same like two bosses over and over again. Like I would imagine that you could theoretically get away with like just using the hunters as bosses. Like you get there and it's like, oh yeah, you got there around the same time that Candon did, and now you got to take down Candon,
Or like
or
even at
something.
least fight their ships or something, like make it so that there's like.
Yeah.
But I think looking back to I never really paid much attention to frame rate back in the day. I was never really worried about it. Like
Hmm.
all the games were kind of for frame rate when I was a kid. And but
Yeah.
looking
Oh
back,
yeah, like 30 was the norm, right?
if that actually
So
there's some games that like Ocarina of Time wasn't 30. I'm surprised. I don't think it hit 30. Maybe at certain points it
yeah.
did, but but I remember the frame rates were some pretty severe frame rate drops in that game in Metroid Prime Hunters. I remember
Hmm.
times where I'm shooting and the gun just went to like slow mo, because it just couldn't keep up. And I think that is a sign that this game was maybe a little bit overly ambitious for what the DS could actually do, which is why the boss fights turned into much more stationary fights compared to like dynamic fights. Like the only dynamic fights were with the hunters, and they're basically just NPC like copies of you with different weapons. Like they're bots from the multiplayer. That's all they are. And so I just think that putting something like Ridley in there would have just tanked the DS's capabilities. I think it would have been, the quality would have had to have been so low on Ridley to even make it feasible. The DS, I just think that looking back, when they put Hunters out as the demo, and then they had to make a game around it, and they were like, wait, this is a lot harder than we thought, because we're pushing this thing to its limits. It would have been cool to see maybe a game like that on the 3DS instead of Federation Force. If there's Prime Hunters, the 3DS could have handled it way better, and it would have made more sense.
So I kind of hope that you and I eventually each get copies of Federation Force.
Yeah.
Because I do want to play through that game.
Me too.
I've heard that it's not actually as bad as everyone says. Like, it's bad in that it's like the wrong game at the wrong time, and it's not like an amazing game. And so then just getting that instead of like a Metroid game obviously felt like a slap in the face. But I've heard it's not like there's some cool things that the game actually does, and some really stupid things. But I feel like that is one that you and I eventually should give a try together.
I agree. I think that it's probably not as bad as people think. They just were mad that was the Metroid game they were getting after all this time waiting. But, looking at the sales charts, again, as much as we just absolutely love the Metroid series, and most of the games in the Metroid series are top tier, like just some of the best games in gaming, period. But, like, it's just sad to look at the sales numbers, and the best-selling Metroid game is Metroid Dread at 3 million. And that's on a system that had insane player base, right? Like, the second best-selling one is Metroid Prime on the GameCube, which only had a player base of like 21 million at the end of its life. So it's almost actually sad to see Metroid Dread have as low sales when it was on a player base of like over probably 100 million when that came out. So Prime Remastered, it looks like it's at 1.36, so it did okay, but it just shows that I think that's why we're not hearing a lot about Prime 4. I think Nintendo's just really unsure if it's really going to sell, despite all the effort and time and stuff and the hype they've kind of put behind it by making it like a big reveal at certain directs. It's just the numbers just. But maybe we'll do better. Maybe it'll be a great system seller for the Switch 2. It'll be a good technical showcase. It's on the Switch 1 and 2, so it has a much higher chance of getting some. It's literally the best case scenario for this game. Have almost 150 million people on one system and have all the people hungry for a new game on the new system. So we'll hope if it could crack 5 million, I'd be pretty stoked. But I guess my point with all that is that I just think Nintendo took a big crack at Metroid during the GameCube era. Like, they went hard. You had 2002, you had 2 games, Fusion and Prime. 2004, you had Zero.
They released on like the same day.
Yeah. Well, I same day are very close. So you had that. You had Zero Mission 2004, and you had the classic NES Metroid Prime. Actually, Zero Mission and Prime 2 came out 2004. Pinball in 2005, 2006 was Hunters, 2007 was Corruption, and then it just slowed down because they just were like, "Hey, we're pumping out Metroid content, and it's just not selling." Zero Mission sold surprisingly low. It's saying like under 1 million.
Which is really surprising because that is easily one of the better 2D entries.
Yeah. But
it's an extremely good game.
It did come out the same year as the DS, though, so that might be another one of those, like... And Nintendo has a habit of doing this. Like, when they did Samus Returns on the 3DS, it sold, like, 500,000 copies. But it's because it came out the same year as the Switch. Like, no one's going... Only people like us were playing that. And it's just so sad that, like... That kind of is a reflection of where the true Metroid fan base is like 500,000 people, because that's how many people showed up for Metroid Samus Returns. Like, people who truly care about that franchise would show up for that. It's only 500,000 people. That's reality.
It's tragic. Yeah, it's too bad. Like, obviously, I'm biased. It's one of my favorite, Nintendo series, but like, it's an example of one of those extremely high quality series that, for whatever reason, just never like took off with the general public, while like absolute trash did. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's really too bad. Um, I don't know. Like, I don't know what you would have to do to it to make it sell better, or if it's just like an awareness thing, or like, I don't know.
It's a
It's like most people probably know it exists. I mean, like, it's not like Smash Brothers. Like, it's not like people don't like look at Smash Brothers characters and be like, oh, like, I have no idea, where what this, like, most people have at least a passing familiarity. Um, if they play like a Nintendo console, they probably like at least have seen Samus before. You know what I mean?
mm-hmm.
Maybe they even know that she's not named Metroid. But like, I don't know, like, it just is sort of mind blowing to me that the games can be that good, and like Metroidvanias can be like a relatively like, I was thinking about it because like that tends to be my favorite genre of game. There have been like more really good Metroidvanias coming out thanks to indies like recently than like at pretty much any other time, and it's like it's not like the niche franchise or the niche like genre that it used to be.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's like you are getting like a lot of really good stuff from it. Now, whether or not it sells, I don't know. As I don't have time to pay attention to the sales of every like Metroidvania game, but it's not like they aren't being made. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so it just makes me wonder, like, what would you have to do to get Metroid to sell?
I don't know. It's really tricky because, like you said, yeah, people know what Metroid is, and a lot of people even know who Samus is, but it's something about it's like the two style of game. It's this side scroller and first person. That's pretty much Metroid, right? I mean, there's
Mm-hmm.
the third person Metroid, other M, and obviously we don't talk about other M, but
Yeah, and there's pinball. Don't forget
and
pinball.
there's pinball. But you look at those games, it's like, is there something about like you think side scrolling would do okay, and I guess technically it does because Metroid Dread did 3 million, which isn't bad. That's still a lot of copies of a game, but it's just for being one of Nintendo's like big franchises, or at least we call it a big franchise. It just doesn't look that impressive compared to the Mario's and Zeldas. Like Zelda found a way to crack into the mainstream. Like people don't realize that the Legend of Zelda franchise was kind of like the Metroid franchise for a long time. It was not selling that amazingly well. Twilight Princess was a bit of an anomaly, getting up to 9 million copies sold, which was a huge deal on the Wii and GameCube, but most of it was the Wii. And it wasn't really till Breath of the Wild that it really saw mainstream acceptance. So it had to do something drastically different with the formula to kind of get people's attention. Now, I'm not saying Metroid needs to literally copy paste what Zelda's doing, but I think Metroid does need some form of redesign or rethinking of the formula while keeping some of the fundamentals, but really like what is something that people would really draw to that gives them a sense of progression and freedom. And maybe that's the part. It's like Metroid
Mm-hmm.
is super good because of just how tightly crafted the levels are. And there is a lot of freedom to a certain extent in Metroid games of being able to explore. But at the end of the day, the games still, for the most part, do kind of lead you a specific way, right? You do kind of need to progress a certain way to beat the games. I think that they're going to have to find a way to introduce a Metroid game where it gives you just that more of that freedom. It doesn't have to be open world. Open world and freedom don't have to be the same thing, but I think just giving you more choice in how you progress would be really interesting to see what they could do that with a Metroid game.
Yeah, and that's sort of why, like, when I pitched my Fusion remake, like, I wanted to give freedom in a different way
Mm-hmm.
in the remake that I envisioned, and that's why I had suggested, and it works decently with like the setting of that game, where you it doesn't make sense to have a bunch of Chozo artifacts or like upgrades sitting around the station in just random places. Like, I don't know, like, I wanted to give like, not not make it an RPG, but give it the like at least some element of freedom as to like how you use what is given to you. So like you would just get like points that you choose to like expand your missiles with, for example, or you expand your like energy or whatever. And that's sort of what I like. I would like to see Metroid like take a risk in the same way that Breath of the Wild took a risk. If they did decide, hey, let's actually like craft something new, and it happens to be open world, I think that sounds great. You know what I mean? Like, because if Nintendo like has an idea, they really want to get behind it, um, and do something new with it. Like, I'm on board. You know what I mean? Like, they've done a great job with Metroid so far. They've done a great job with Zelda, and you know, a little bit of uh, like sort of revealing of when this got recorded. But Donkey Kong Bonanza like literally just got released, and at least from what you're telling me, it's extremely good, and it is kind of a reimagining of DK. And so, it's like just do it for Metroid. You know what I mean? Like, I would love to see that.
And maybe, my thought instantly went to, I've really been enjoying playing the game No Man's Sky, and I know you really enjoyed playing the game No Man's Sky.
Oh, I love No Man's
And
Sky. Yeah.
it doesn't necessarily mean that I want Metro to be No Man's Sky, where all the crafting and like the nuance of it, but I love the exploration and the idea of just being able to get in a ship and fly to different space stations, to different planets. So take like some of the elements of that where you can get in Samus's spaceship and actually fly it around and do space combat and land on certain planets, but it doesn't have to be all procedural, and it doesn't have to be like micromanaging inventory, but I just give her more ability to explore the world around her. Just give her like one galaxy, with like maybe like 8 or 9 planets, right? And kind of like what Metroid Prime 3 kind of did this in a really, really, really limited way, where you had the multiple planets. And I guess Metroid Prime Hunters technically did that because you do go from planet to planet, but it's so like it's barely a choice.
It's bare bones.
It's like it's just extra
Yeah,
steps.
like if I were to envision, and maybe we can talk about this sometime because I think it'd be kind of fun. But if I were to envision like what I would want to see in terms of like stuff in Metroid that they've never done before but should reasonably exist as part of the lore, I would love to like have side quests that are just bounty missions.
Yeah.
And like Samus has to go to like or she like goes to her ship and she gets offered like bounties, and it's like and I don't necessarily want them to be procedurally generated. I want them to be interesting, and it's like maybe there are like a couple dozen bounties as side missions in the game that happen to take place in the area where the main story is happening. And then you could like have Trace come back from it, and they're like, oh, you gotta capture Trace because he's doing whatever, he's raiding this thing for the empire, like whatever. And like you go and you like earn currency, and with that currency you can do something. I don't know. My point is that Nintendo has a unique talent to weave together different gameplay elements into something unique. Because when you think about it, like, what did Breath of the Wild like actually do? You know what I mean? Like, what was so unique about Breath of the Wild? It was the combination of everything. It wasn't necessarily just any one element. It was like they put it together in such a way and had very specific limitations on it, and made the world work in a way that was sort of intuitive, where it's like you would expect, like if you were to, I don't know, shoot a flaming arrow into this grass field, like it's going to catch on fire, or if you roll this boulder down a hill, like it would kill something. So it's like essentially a physics engine mixed with some pseudo RPG elements with like kind of a Dark Souls combat system. Not really, but it is more that way than previous Zelda games are. And then adding food, which games have had for a long time, adding what is essentially like a cooking or a potion system, which had been done before. Like, there are very few parts of Breath of the Wild, like individual elements that hadn't been done before. It was the combination of them in the package with a very specific vision that made Breath of the Wild what it is.
Yeah. No, I agree. It's just it's all the little things. Everyone likes to point to, oh, it's the exploration, it's the climbing, it's the the lack of linearity of plot and the freedom to just go anywhere and take on the final boss immediately. But I do think that it's a mixture of every little piece that just made it just this breath of fresh air, no pun intended.
Yeah.
But Metroid needs something. It needs some level of freedom, that people give, so people can create their own experiences. I think that's what made Breath of the Wild really fun too, is that everyone had a different way of doing it, and so you could talk about it. Metroid is very much like it's definitely favors speedrunners, but I mean so does Zelda
Mm-hmm.
too. So it's like really you can't say that that's a fault of that game. So I don't know. Like this is again one of those problems that only Nintendo can solve, and maybe that's why they've struggled to make Metroid games, because they've struggled to solve the equation. So, but I'm just
I
glad.
guarantee you there are at least some developers who have some really sweet ideas at Nintendo that just haven't gotten the opportunity to do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like there's someone sitting on the answer right now.
probably. And we haven't played Metroid Prime 4, so the problem with Metroid Prime 4 is it does feel, at least from what we've seen so far, to be just an extension of the formula as it's been before. So I don't think it's going to reinvent the wheel. I think it's going to be visually stunning. I think it's going to control amazing, and I think it's going to bring some fun mechanics that we've never seen before, but I don't think it's going to really change the world. So I'm really hoping that at some point someone's given the reins, kind of like with Other M. Like even though Other M gets a bad rap, it was kind of fun to see them experiment with Samus and the
Mm-hmm.
gameplay and the
Yeah.
story. Like everything was very much experimental. Didn't work out, but it was fun to see them experiment. We need more of that from Nintendo with kind of like how, again, like Mario Kart World, they decided to go open world. And again, everyone's going to feel like, oh, the secret to making all Nintendo games good again is open world. And who's to say that isn't the case for Samus? But I do think that she definitely needs something to kind of boost interest. You can't just appeal to a certain specific fan base forever, because those people just eventually lose interest. You've got to build new fans, and that's what Zelda did. And there's so many people upset. They're like, I want to go back to the old Zelda games. I'm like, well, I don't think Nintendo does, because 34 million copies sold of Breath of the Wild is nothing to sneeze at, versus 9
Yeah.
on Twilight Princess. And Skyward Sword did
Yeah.
terribly. So, I mean, obviously linearity doesn't equal good games. People are just nostalgic for a game that they played years and years ago. And if you go back and play those games, you'll feel that nostalgia, but the games don't play as good as the new games. Let's just be real. So,
No,
so
they don't. I actually saw a copy of Skyward Sword HD in a used game store today, and I'm just like, nah.
I
Like,
have it.
I don't know. Like, you do, yeah. I'll borrow it from you someday once I finish the other games. By the way, Octopath Traveler is pretty good. I do have that with me right now.
Nice. I still haven't beat it, and
But
I own
anyway,
it.
yeah, yeah. You let me borrow it.
Yeah,
So for
you
all
can beat it
intents and
for me.
purposes,
Um,
okay, sounds good.
well, anyway, so that was the Metroid Prime Hunters episode. We kind of got into a little bit of a
Yeah,
tangent with Nintendo and Metroid, but it kind of does lead into a lot of the ideas of Nintendo, what they've done with Metroid, where they're going with it. It'd be interesting to talk about this once we've played Metroid Prime 4 one day, and to see what Nintendo does with it. But for anyone out there listening, if you haven't played Metroid Prime Hunters, obviously it's probably, I don't think it costs too much online. If it's some game you'd love to pick up, it's hard to say like go play it, because I mean we didn't talk a big game about the single player. But if you are a Metroid fan, you want to experience them all, definitely pick it up. And you can still play multiplayer with bots. But and I don't know, I'd have to look to see if anyone's created any kind of community server type setup for the multiplayer. But I don't know if the Nintendo Wi-Fi really works with the DS anymore. But
no, it doesn't. It all got shut down.
but there was a lot of good ideas in that game. I loved the cutscenes. I loved the kind of the idea of the hunters. Whether it was executed properly or not is a whole different thing. But clearly, Nintendo's still not giving up on the idea, because Silex is coming back for Prime 4. So I think that there's still something there. Just need to see it done in the right way. And to be fair, Metroid Prime Hunters was not made by Retro, so maybe. And Retro kind of did a decent job with the idea of hunters in Prime 3. They weren't actually the hunters from from the Hunters game, but it was kind of a fun. I think they did a much better job with them in Prime 3 than what we got in the DS.
I agree. I I like the ones from Prime 3 a lot. I kind of wish that we'd gotten a little bit more time with them. But obviously like that is I guess sort of like what makes you like sort of sad when, spoilers, sorry, but when they all go is it's like, you didn't really like get to know them all that well and you do kind of wonder a little bit more about them, which I guess is what the logbook is for in some ways. It would be kind of nice if I don't know there was like some sort of prequel where we did run into them at some point. But I imagine we're not going to. I think if we see more bounty hunters again, for the most part, it's going to be new characters.
Mm-hmm.
But here's hoping that in Prime 4, like, we get some new characters who are like really interesting. I don't know if that's the case. I hope so.
Well, they've been very secretive with the game. I'm hoping that's for a good reason and not because of just giving up on it. To be fair, Nintendo has this thing now where they basically just are very singularly focused on whatever is happening in the next month. Like that's their whole workflow is like Mario Kart World was their whole world, Switch 2 and Mario Kart World, and then DK's coming up, and there was nothing but DK news. And that's why there's a lot of rumors there's going to be a direct this month now that DK's out, and we'll get to see if they actually like move on and start telling us what's happening for the rest of the year. So
Yeah, it'd be nice.
But, well, I think that's going to wrap it up. Thank you, everyone, for listening. This has been the Super Dandori Bros Podcast. I'm Leighton. He's Ryan, and we'll talk to you again in the next one. Bye.
See you.